the work will be nationwide. And our goal is that Skills for America's Future will launch a national movement to strengthen America's workforce, to optimize job training programs, and ultimately job placement. So we ask you, Mr. President, as you said earlier, to endorse Skills for America's Future, and we just can't begin soon enough. We believe putting the resources into training and development of workers, as you believe, is one of the best investments that we can make in our country. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Penny. Anna, you want to chime in, because I know you worked on this, and then I know traditionally sometimes people feel a little constrained in these conversations, but I'm going to make sure that I ask a couple of questions. I just want some top lines on where we think we can have the most impact most quickly on this. But go ahead, Anna.
Mr. President, thank you. I would say on behalf of the whole President's Economic Recovery Advisory Board, you really have given all of us an opportunity to come out from different perspectives and strategize around common issues that we all confront. And I think that the training discussions that Penny led brought us all an opportunity to hear from business leaders, education leaders, union leaders, and practitioners, and really get into what were the obstacles about in us being able to prepare the workforce for the future.
Well, I'm very encouraged, and I fully endorse it. I'm looking forward to being behind it 100%. I am interested, and maybe folks like Jim Skinner or others who are already doing this kind of work, and you guys may have already gone over this, but I'd be interested just in figuring out, when we look at the best practices, Penny, what 2 or 3 elements stand out, so that if we're planning to scale up, what are some indicators that this is the kind of workforce training that's going to work, this is the kind that's a waste of money and time that we have to revamp? Is it primarily businesses having spoken to the community colleges ahead of time and help them design it so that they know what skills are needed? Is a lot of it simply a matter of remediation, in which case, we've got to do more work K through 12 to make sure that folks are up to speed? And obviously this will vary industry by industry, but I don't know if either Jim or Glenn or somebody who are already doing this, whether you guys have any thoughts on this, or Penny, based on all the conversations you had.
Well, I'd be happy to speak up. The selfish viewpoint of McDonald's, of course, around talent management, leadership development, because we're a growing company, is making sure we have the skill sets in our workforce that are capable of delivering on our strategies. Now, that has an enormous impact on America, because if you look at the work that we're doing, which is centrally focused on English under the arches, it's not about our people being able to speak English. It's about them being able to communicate more effectively, be more competitive in the workforce, and be associated with community colleges so that they can further their education. And we're going to expand that by 30 sites and another $1
billion new American industry whose jobs are never going to be outsourced. So I know your administration is working very hard to push this forward. That's our status, and perhaps it could be part of an oil spill bill or some other action before the Congress adjourns.
I've been sold on this for a long time. When we announced our desire to move aggressively for this, we went over to Home Depot, and what was striking was not only the enthusiasm, obviously, of a big national company like Home Depot, but talking to I met a young man who had been unemployed for 16 months, was retrained over the course of 2 to 3 months to lay down insulation, had proven to be just a terrific employee. He was working for a small contractor who had seen his business collapse after the housing bubble burst, and now was seeing a significant pickup in his work around this notion. So this can have a terrific impact at retail level, among small businesses, and among young people who can be trained fairly rapidly to take on this work and to do a terrific job. So we're going to push hard, and obviously it also cut our nation's electricity bill, which we're all concerned about for energy and environmental reasons as well. this is going to be a top priority. Jeff, do you want to talk a little bit about how you see this from for a company that operates internationally, and obviously you and I have spoken a lot about how we can boost exports. One of my main goals is boosting exports. We're going to need a good workforce to do it.
So, Mr. President, the export markets remain strong. I was in Asia the last couple of weeks, and again, the economies remain very strong. I think the work that Secretary Locke and State and USTR is really being felt. So I want to say thanks for that. Our exports continue to grow, as I know Jim's do, and other UTC and others.
It's got to be investment and really global competitiveness, export oriented, to give us the kind of sustainable recovery we're looking for. So let's, I know you've made some proposals on infrastructure. Anything we can do to help you move those things forward, we'd be delighted.
Rich, I know that obviously you're hearing some of this, what Jim said from your own membership. Folks in the trades right now who were doing well when the housing market was booming have been devastated over the last couple of years. And so I'm assuming that ideas like infrastructure are ones that would garner strong support from your members.
In construction, we have about 40 to 42% of our members on the bench right now. But I want to thank you, Mr. President, for first bringing us together to talk about jobs and the urgent need for more investment in workforce training. And so we think quick action along those lines could have a fast payoff in terms of stimulating American jobs, exports, and manufacturing. And the last point is we think we need to rebalance our economy in order to succeed globally. Because if the United States is going to be a high-wage, high-performance, export-led economy, it needs to do three things that the other successful, wealthy, industrialized exporting countries have done. First, invest much more in education and lifelong training, which is what we're recommending that you do today. Second, continue to invest in modern infrastructure, as Jim Owens has discussed earlier, including transportation, communications, and clean energy for the 21st century. And the third is to support labor law reforms that will allow workers the freedom to choose a union without fear of reprisal. Because in a cutting-edge economy, unions are an essential partner for fast-paced, innovative business. And successful high-wage export economies around the world have empowered workers, not treated them like costs to be cut. So, Mr. President, we really applaud you for all the efforts you've made to first save the economy and then turn it around and start to create jobs and build a foundation where the economy can grow and the jobs that we need can be created. And all of us look forward to working with you in that endeavor.
All my economic team, Tim, Larry, now Austin, as the head of the CEA, my cabinet secretaries at Commerce and Education, Labor. We spend a big chunk of each week, and have for the last 2 years, trying to optimize the nation's economic performance and the recovery in light of a couple of things that have already been mentioned. Obviously, the severity of the downturn. Historically, financial crises bring about recessions that are deeper and longer lasting than the normal business cycle recessions. There is a sense on the part of consumers that that they have to start saving more and cutting back on their debt levels, and that means that the prospect of a consumer-driven V-shaped recovery is less likely. And we're in a fiscal environment in which we were already in debt, which means that some of the traditional tools that we have are more difficult to apply. We essentially have to apply the accelerator and the brakes at the same time. But two things that I think might be worth focusing on in the remainder of our time would be, one, the issue of, that's already been raised, the issue of aggregate demand. Are there ways that in a cost-effective fashion we can boost aggregate demand? And the second thing we should talk about is uncertainty, because one of the things that we do here, obviously this has been prominent in the business press, is the notion that, well, companies are now making a profit again, they're sitting on a lot of cash, but they're unwilling to put that cash to work investing because they're concerned about uncertainty, whether it's legislative, healthcare, financial regulatory reform, or taxes and the outlook there. So I'd be interested in hearing some thoughts from the group on both those items. Martin, I will start with you and see if there are some strategies for boosting aggregate demand that would garner your support, knowing that you are obviously concerned about our long-term fiscal outlook.
Thank
Obviously, we may not have time to pursue it today. If you've got some specific ideas on the housing front, I think we should hear them, and I'll make sure that our team follows up. The small business, it does sound like you've got something worked out that with some specificity. I'd be interested in seeing how it might fit with some of the work we're already doing to help get small businesses loans. The tax debate's a long one. I mean, I think the interesting question would be whether you felt the same way if you knew that there was, if you extended all the tax cuts for 2 years, that you couldn't hold the floodgates back and you'd then be extending them in perpetuity, whether you'd feel the same way.
I think what could be done after 2 years will depend on whether there are other reductions in the out-year deficits. If the Fiscal Commission or if the administration can find either savings on the spending side or changes in tax expenditures so that the outlook is more favorable, the fiscal outlook, then maybe a modified version of continuing the tax cuts. But I think drawing the line at the end of the 2 years is better than a commitment now to continue indefinitely. And I think not doing anything for the next 2 years risks sucking a lot of demand out of the economy at a time where really it's, as you know, we've been expanding but at a slower and slower pace quarter after quarter. This doesn't seem to me a time when you want to pull back demand by letting tax rates jump.
Bill, do you have some thoughts on this issue of either aggregate demand or uncertainty, or both?
Thank you, Mr. President. I believe that in a very short haul, uncertainty is depressing aggregate demand